Hi, my name is Elaine, and I need to share my story with you. Hopefully, it will shed some light on what's going on in the world right now and why the governments and elites and banking systems and things like that are doing the things that they're doing at this point in time. So, almost 2 years ago, in October of 2019, a person and I, was my ex, we're not together anymore. We're on a road trip from Alberta to Ontario. We stopped in Thunder Bay. At that point, I hadn't slept from about a day before we left Alberta up until that point. And we stopped to watch the sunset at a parking lot that had 3 churches nearby. And the way that I felt at that time was pure love, really. I didn't have many thoughts going on in my head. I was just so connected to love and the universe. And I was really inside myself without thought at that point in time, just enjoying being alive and enjoying at the time who I was with. And that's really about it. It was pure love. So when I got out of the car, the other person got out as well, and we were standing in the parking lot. I don't know why I said these words. I didn't have a forethought about it. It just came out. And I said, "Show me I'm ready." I didn't say it loud enough for the other person to hear. And I basically just said it to the universe, feeling connected. And then about half an hour later, everything changed. The sky started to change. The clouds started to roll in quicker than I ever thought possible. I had never seen anything like that before, even in movies. The clouds came and formed angels and cherub-looking things, a lot of dogs, and people riding chariots and horses. And that went on above my head, very close to me, continuously changing, bringing out more angelic beings, and a lot of dogs. There really was a lot of dogs. And when it first started, I fell to my knees. I started crying and thank God for what I was witnessing. The person who was with me did not. After a while, about 7 hours, things started to change. The nice things, the angels and the beautiful things that I was seeing and I was so thankful for, started to go away. And then other things took their place. Faces started to appear in the sky everywhere. They weren't just faces, they were awakened beings. It seemed like it was basically the dead awakening their faces. They were all over the sky, and I noticed that their eyes were moving around. It really freaked me out. But what scared me even more was when I made eye contact with the faces. They looked scared and shocked. And when I made eye contact with them, they became angry. And that really scared me a lot. I didn't understand at the time what was going on, what I was seeing, and what the other person was also seeing too. And why they were angry at me. So they kept coming in for quite some time. And I really thought that it was the apocalypse that had started, and I thought that everybody could see it. I didn't realize at that point in time that we were the only ones who were seeing it. So after hours and hours of that going by, the faces everywhere, they kept coming up and being replaced with other faces. And nighttime came. We were driving around in the car because we were on a trip. I was very far away from where I lived. And we were in an area that I had been through before, but I wasn't all that familiar with. I was scared. I didn't understand what was going on at the time. And we were just driving around trying to find cover, really, because we thought the apocalypse had started for everyone. And then nighttime came. And that's when things got weird. Like, really, really weird. Creatures came out. There was a lot of creatures. They were just as real as anything else is that I see all the time. I mean, just as real as anything that I'm looking at now, or that was in my previous existence up until this point in time. It was like two worlds had come together. At nighttime, the creatures were roaming. There was all kinds of creatures. There was dinosaurs and really giant things of the past that we were taught about, like woolly mammoths and really big saber-toothed tigers and things like that. And they were just free roaming at nighttime. There was a lot of sky creatures as well. So big dragons and really big birds and things like that that were flying around in the sky. So we found somewhere to hide out for the night. We put crosses on the door. I'm not religious. Just to let you know, I have never been religious. I grew up in a house where it was frowned upon. And I've always believed in God myself. And I found God not within a church and not within a book, but within myself. So when I speak about God, it is my own personal experience, not something that I learned in a book, and not something that anyone else ever told me. These are my own personal experiences. Also, I should mention that back in 2012 was the first divine experience that I ever had, and I went to heaven. I didn't die. It wasn't a near-death experience or anything like that, but I went to heaven, and then I returned. So I'll talk about that in another video. But right now I just want to talk about this last experience in 2019 because it is directly related to what's going on right now. So the first night, I forgot to mention the aliens as well. Aliens showed up on my car while we were driving pretty much instantly as soon as the faces became prevalent in the sky. They were everywhere, and there was an alien spaceship that was right on top of my car. It wasn't very big. It was about the size of the car. It was just a little four-door car that we were driving at the time, and it was flat and black, and it was a triangle shape, and it had white lights all around the perimeter. 9, I believe, but I'm not totally sure. So on that day, I couldn't see the aliens with my eyes, but I definitely could see one in the back seat of the car through my mirror. And at the time, I did take a lot of pictures, but they all got destroyed. I used a recovery program and got a couple of them back, but that's it. So I was a little bit freaked out about the aliens. Their ship didn't make any sounds. It was right on top of our car, hovering above us, and there was one in the back seat, and it didn't make any sounds either. It was just sitting there, and it was quite small. To me at the time, I had never seen anything like that before. I had always seen things in the sky, but not up close like that. So after researching a little bit, I've come to realize that they were the Greys. They looked just like them. And so after the first night, basically when we took cover, we found a building to go into, and we put crosses on the doors and then hid in one of the rooms and just stayed in there for the night. Repeating the Lord's Prayer at the time. I didn't know what else to do, and I had learned it in school. I'm in public school in Ontario, when I was a child, it used to be part of the morning program to say the Lord's Prayer along with singing O Canada. So that's where I learned it from. And I remembered it. So we started reciting it, and I kept saying it over and over again. And I was writing it down as well because I was forgetting it. I had gone without sleep for a couple days at that point. So the next morning, I could hear vehicles on the highway, and I remember thinking to myself, like, what are they doing? You know, they're going to get hurt, something's going to happen, the creatures are going to run into them, things like that. There was a lot going through my mind at that point. And when we went outside and started driving again, everything seemed normal to the rest of the world. It was like nothing was happening. So that was the first time that I realized that other people were not seeing what we were seeing. So we got in the car and we started driving. Continuing on our trip in Ontario, we're actually headed to the Oshawa area. And we definitely didn't make it. But I noticed during the day that the creatures that were free roaming at nighttime were now contained behind what looked like a glass along the sides of the roads. And some of the creatures they had just walked back into rocks. I know it sounds very, very crazy. Their imprint was imprinted on the rocks as if they just had walked back into them, and they were like painted on there. And there was one woolly mammoth that had walked into the rock, and the tusk was sticking out very far. And I remember thinking, like, wow, somebody's going to run into that. Like, it's going to cause, an accident because it was so big. And obviously that wasn't the case because other people weren't aware of what was going on. So during the daytime, the creatures were held behind a glass or stuck back into the rocks. And during the daytime, there was faces on everything. Faces all over the rocks. There was faces all over the trees, all over bushes, all over everything. And every single day in the sky was a different theme. I saw so many things in the sky. This whole experience lasted 7 days, 7 full days. So every day it seemed to be a different theme. There was aliens and what happened in history with the humans and how we became humans. It was like a movie one day was playing in the sky of creatures coming down and mating with women that were already here. And that's why we were created. There was an outside source that came down and mated with the females that were here. So the humans of today are not an original creation, we are hybrids. There was so many things that I saw, all of the resets that happened over time. There were 5. And I saw a lot of people in the water. I saw a lot of sea creatures. I saw a giant turtle that had a city on its back. I saw all kinds of birds, giant birds, and dragons. And aliens were very, very prevalent. There are many different types of aliens that I saw over the course of the week, but they all generally looked the same, but they had different shapes to them. Some were big and some were small. They all had a green type of skin that varied in shade. Their eyes were black and almond, and they had small slits for their mouths. And there was a lot of creatures that are very hard to explain. They're hybrid animals, and I know this is going to sound really, really, really strange. There were pig people. There were bug people. There was so many different types of creatures that acted like humans and looked half human, but also looked half of other things, like different kinds of animals, as well as like tree people. They just looked like trees, but walking around like humans, interacting with the aliens like humans and interacting with each other. And as the days went by, when I made eye contact with them, they very much started to chase. There was also a giant green head that was just floating along the road. And I can hear myself. I know how crazy this sounds. This experience, at the time, I couldn't understand what was going on, or that how two people could be seeing the same things. It wasn't a hallucination or anything like that. Two worlds had come together and combined into one for that week. I just kept praying, and I was scared. When nighttime came, everything was free roaming. And it was really scary. They were chasing, and we were staying in hotel rooms, hiding in a corner in a hotel room, and the aliens were all over the place, and there was demons. The demons had very white pasty skin and very sharp teeth and glowing eyes. One of the nights we had stopped at a Husky gas station, and I went inside, and then I tried to take a drink of muscle milk. I had bought some muscle milk, and I had tried to take a drink of it, and it turned sour as I was trying to drink it. Now, the person that was working there was starting to act a little bit strange. I could see in their security cameras, because they had a monitor at the front of the store where the till is, and it had various security cameras all being displayed on one monitor. And I could see our car in the monitor, and I could see the demons in the back seat with their glowing eyes, and they looked like kids. They were small, and they looked like children. They had gotten out and were just in front of the window, staring in at me while I was inside the Husky gas station. Then a man walked in from a big rig truck. He just came in. I didn't really notice him. I was too focused on, basically I was standing behind a rack, like a display rack, because the demons that were staring at me were quite intimidating, actually. And I was really scared the entire time. So then the person who was working told me that there was a piece of paper on the floor that the gentleman had dropped who came out of the truck. So I didn't touch the paper at all. He picked it up, and there was a drawing on it of a girl with long hair that kind of looked like me, with a seal on the forehead. It was just drawn with a blue pen, and it was a very small, ripped piece of paper. It was very small. And the guy who was working there kept trying to tell me that it was me. And I kept saying, no, that's not me. I wasn't willing to accept anything like that. And he was acting more and more strange. He was being very pushy about the paper. And when I was ready to leave, he started huffing and puffing. I had never seen anybody do these things before in my life. I could see his eyes were fluttering a little bit, and he was huffing and puffing, standing behind the counter, and his head was down slightly. And then I could sense that something was rising in him, that he was fighting with something. Something went inside of his body. I'd never seen anything like that before. So I ran out of there. My fight or flight kicked in, and I got the fuck out. I ran back to the car and explained to the person that I was with what happened, and we drove away quite quickly because it scared me that there was something inside of a man that was now physical. So I knew that the things that I was seeing before were not physical, but now it was inside of a body, and that scared me a lot. So we got it. And we were driving around and basically on the run. I mean, every time I made eye contact with anything that was there outside, it started to chase. So basically we were just running and trying to hide from the creatures that were basically everywhere. They were just free roaming everywhere at night. And we came up to one house. We were trying to figure out what we can do to get some kind of help, or to help people understand what was going on at the time, and to ask people, you know, if they were seeing what we were seeing. And we had asked multiple people along the way. We stopped at a hospital, we stopped at a Canadian Tire, we were at the Husky Gas, and nobody seemed to be able to see what was going on in the sky or on the ground all around us. Just us could see it. So as the days went by, I saw a lot of things. One thing that's really, really important to me now that I saw was 5 light suns came across the sky together. They looked like bright suns, like the sun disk in the sky. And then a black one came separate. And with it came a big black, looked like a pirate ship. It was just floating around in the sky, and it came with the black sun. So at the time I didn't realize. Was just trying to take note of all of the things that I was seeing while the other person was driving. And now it makes sense to me, but at the time it didn't. And that's a big reason why it's taken 2 years since the event to be able to make this video. It was a lack of understanding, and I've never made videos before. I mean, I just made one the night before last night to show what the chemtrails were like in the sky, because it was just getting really ridiculous. But I'm very camera shy. I don't like much attention on me. I don't have many friends. I'm not social. I like to keep to myself and just take care of my family and enjoy the little things. So it's taken almost 2 years to be able to even make this video, or to make sense of the experiences that I've had and what's going on in the world today. There were just so many things that I saw. Water was really, really prevalent. There was a lot of people in the water. There were a lot of people fighting. And this is a strange one too. There was a lot of Disney characters. I remember seeing the Never-Ending Story dog and Zeus and things like that. They were giant creatures that were in the sky. And another really important thing was that one day I saw a lot of creatures flying in the sky. So a lot of them were light colored, and a lot of them were gray, and some of them were darker than that. And then I saw the black ones started to animate and fly around. So it was as if they were getting dense in the sky. They were getting heavier and fuller and darker. And once they became full and fully dark, they came alive and they started to fly around in the sky. That was the same day that I saw the suns come across the sky. To me, the suns represented the previous resets that have happened on this planet. They also represent the essence behind the time for those periods as well. So the 5 light suns were time periods, and it was the influence behind each time period. And then the black one that came separately from the other light suns is the period that we are in now, with the influence of the dark sun. Now, when I say sun, I don't mean S-O-N. I meant S-U-N. It was a disk, a black disk in the sky. And we've had 5 resets. This is going to be number 6. This is the time period right now. People have changed over time from the beginning of the first creation until now. And as the days went on, I didn't sleep and I didn't eat the entire time, a full week. The last day was the scariest thing for me. We were sitting at a Tim Hortons parking lot, and the other person that was with me, for some reason, could not see the things that I was seeing that day. He could see the faces on the trees and in the rocks and things like that, but he couldn't see what I saw. The night right before that day, I saw eyes that had come into the window of the car that we were driving. I also forgot to mention, too, the magic. There was magic all over the car the entire week. It was magic writing all around the windows of the car. And we kept trying to go to churches to seek help for this type of thing because we really didn't know what to do and couldn't understand why nobody else was seeing it. So we went to Catholic churches, Christian churches, and also an Islamic one at nighttime. So when we pulled up to these buildings, except for the Islamic one, the Christian church and the Catholic church, there were demons on the inside and aliens on the inside of it that came up to the window as we pulled up. So that scared us even more and kept us away from those churches. The Islamic one, it was a trick. They were trying to trick us, and I didn't realize at that time that it was just a bunch of tricks, but that's exactly what it was. They were just trying to trick me into accepting their evil, and I wasn't having it, so I didn't trust anything that was going on that I was seeing and experiencing and what they were trying to get me to do. I didn't trust any of it, and I just kept my will on God and kept praying, and I knew that God was going to protect me. So I had a conversation with the eyes that were on the window in the car, and I was talking about God, and I knew who I was talking to even though I hadn't seen him yet. I knew that it was Satan. I knew. I don't know how I knew. I guess I just knew. I don't know. And I told him that it wasn't supposed to be this way, that God loved him and his purpose was not what he made it out to be. He had taken it the wrong way, and his ego took over, and that he's done a disservice to everyone and to God as well. I made him cry. There were tears that came out of his glowing eyes. And at the time, that's all I could see in the window was the glowing eyes. I talked to him for quite a long time. I didn't hear anything back. It was telepathic. It was a knowing. It's hard to explain that type of communication. But when the sun rose in the morning, we had parked at a Tim Hortons. And I was trying to use my phone. And every time I hooked up to the internet connection, it would get blocked. So eventually I figured out that I had to go through, a private network. So I set that up on my phone. And then they weren't able to block it at that point in time. But I did have to go to a different Tim Hortons parking lot. For some reason, my data at the time on my phone wasn't working and had to use public Wi-Fi. So I set up a private connection through my phone, and they weren't able to mess with it at that point. And when the sun rose in the morning, I noticed a Reaper at the back of the car. I had never seen anything like that before. It was floating, and it had a black cloak on. It didn't have legs, it was just floating. And the eyes, you could tell what it was wearing was a costume. So the eyes were like a mesh, and they were red. And it was holding, it was like a metal bar in the shape of a 7. I'm sorry, it's frozen.